Brighter Light, Darker Shadow by Backing into Infinity, read by Oakshadow 5. This episode contains Chapter 8 and 9, so we'll begin with Chapter 8, A New Beach. Summary: Bakugo goes to the beach and does some much-needed thinking. Izuku proves banning him from flammable objects is not enough. A few hours later, the students had been checked out and taken back to school to be collected by their worried parents, or to walk home, for those who lived alone. Aizawa had been banded up by paramedics and taken to the hospital alongside 13. Since there were no major student injuries, and the heroes dealt with the villains in a relatively decisive manner, the incident had mostly blown over by the next day. Katsuki ditched his friends on the walk home and took a detour. Hobo-sensei had announced the sports festival today, but his mind was elsewhere. The events of the USJ, and his choice to take friends over glory, along with his many mistakes, kept rattling around in his head. Ever since coming to school, it seemed, every step of the way had revealed more errors in his thought patterns, or more examples to prove him wrong. He wasn't the strongest. He wasn't the smartest. He needed help sometimes, and giving help and teaming up was occasionally the right choice. It just didn't make sense. This isn't what being a hero was supposed to be about. Katsuki reached his destination and trudged through the doorway, bowing low. "Sabom," he barked respectfully, the older man reclining behind his desk during a lull between classes. "Please, I need advice." "Of course, Bakugo-san. Come in, take a seat." Katsuki walks out of the dojang 30 minutes later, wiping away the tears he refused to admit were there as younger students filed in for the class. The older man had given him a lot to think about, and he didn't want to go home yet, so he made his way to the Goba beach near his house. The explosive teen stalked across the trash-covered sand, muttering to himself as he tried to sort out his feelings. He let out an explosion, pulverizing a section of trash, before lifting it and carrying it over to a previous pile of sorted trash. During his middle school years, the speech had been recommended to him by a short-lived school counselor as a good way to blow off excess steam and anger while doing the community a service. He didn't come here super often, but over the past year or two, he had slowly cleaned a reasonable section of it. Katsuki worked up a sweat quickly, crushing and scorching trash before moving it into bags and stacking them in his usual place. His Sabom's words circled his head rapidly, fluttering around and picking holes in his normal thought pattern. "Others do not have to be weak for you to be strong. If they are strong too, it will only help you grow." A microwave takes 2 powerful explosions to crumble, its composite parts expelled rapidly at the sides of the machine. The remaining scrap is flat packed and placed into a bag alongside the remnants of a toaster oven. "Needing help is not weakness. It was not weakness when you asked me to teach you. It was getting stronger. We are at our strongest with others to support us." The fridge proved tougher than the other scrap, allowing Katsuki to spend a few mindless minutes slowly pummeling it into submission. The smoking and warped door is placed beside the bags, where the fridge box comes apart panel by panel and gets stacked neatly. Later, a garbage truck will come by to collect the trash. His parents had arranged for it during his third year of middle school at his request. "All Might says people with a smile. He does not destroy villains with a smile. A hero's job is to save people, not just to conquer villains." Katsuki powers through another pile of trash, the sun slowly starting to dip below the horizon. His parents won't care if he gets back late. This isn't the first time he has stayed out past dark working on something. He crushes the smaller trash into a cube, firing rapid small explosions to heat and melt it together while enhancing the compacting power of his arms. The beach is isolated enough that no one has ever complained about the rapid explosions, so he is at relatively low risk for an illegal quirk use warning. "It is okay to be angry. It is okay to not like people much. It is not okay to take it out violently. You do not have to change your personality or who you are to become a better person." A tall, emaciated man in a pin-stripped suit watches the explosive teen thoughtfully for a while, before going on his way wordlessly. Katsuki ignores the stranger, focusing on the next section of beach as he slowly works through his thoughts. Hours later, the teen trudges back into his house. His uniform is stained and rumpled, and he is breathing heavily and covered in soot. "Heck!" he barks at his mother upon entering the living room of the home. "Call the garbage man and tell them to bring 2 trucks this time, and sign his application form so I can go see the school counselor." Elsewhere during the weekend, a small green boy fidgets gleefully with some scrap in a workshop. Other students putter around him. Open workshop time is very busy this close to the sports festival, as smarter students in other courses race to build a few pieces of gear to give them an edge in the competition. A click and a hiss sound from the object on the desk, and the grenade holds it up triumphantly. "I've done it!" Izuku cries with glee, nearby students flinching away. The negative 3000 degree knife? Take that, hero talk! That was chapter 8, and now we'll continue on to chapter 9, which is titled A New Sports Festival, Part 1. Summary. The students prepare for the festival, as Midoriya grapples with OSHA rules. The first event of the sports festival kicks off. The 2 weeks before the sports festival is always a busy period at UA. Students in the other departments scramble to prepare almost as much as the Hiroko students do. Business students draw up odds and draft graphs and predictions for the class projects they have surrounding the festival. The support course submits gear for review and frantically finish their last few pieces. General education either trains frantically for their chance at entering the hero course, or the only members of the school not busy. And management students offer their services to the other departments, hoping to prove their skills by mentoring a sports festival underdog. For the hero course students, these 2 weeks are even busier. Rescue training is allowed to fall to the wayside during these weeks, as the students are endlessly drilled in combat and tactics and subjected to as much conditioning as possible. For them, the festival is crucial to their future career opportunities, and competitive spirit is at an all-time high. Most of the students spend their free time in the gym or in the training fields, but some students take advantage of the rule allowing them to bring one piece of homemade support gear to help them. For Aoyama, this is his only chance to have the belt crucial to his square control, but for Izuku, this time only represents an opportunity to arm himself in increasingly creative ways. Izuku tosses the knife onto the table as Paolora lectures him about acceptable objects to stick into other students. He grumbles under his breath and pulls out another blueprint, moving on to his 5th project of the week. How about knife gloves? He asked the support teacher. Like the ones in Assassin's Creed 25? Yes, Midoriya. Knives are fine since you are cleared to use them by your teacher. The support hero says tiredly. The only issue with the other designs was the possibility of injecting students with dangerous substances or dangerous temperatures. A knife glove should be fine. I could even teach you how to hook a basic taser to it. Okay. Shoto hangs up his phone with a synthetic click, tossing it into his gym bag in disgust. His father was once again insisting that he spend his time at school training his fire, so that he could win the sports festival and eventually surpass All Might. It wasn't that Shoto had too much of a problem with the fire anymore. After his classmate had made him use it early in the semester, he had slowly been coming to terms with the idea of employing fire in the field. During the USJ, the villains he froze could have suffered serious injuries if he hadn't thawed them out afterwards, and a god of flame may have been able to cauterize the Nomu and stop its regeneration. But every time his father insisted on him using the fire again, Shoto couldn't help but double down on his resistance and continue his stubborn refusal to employ his left side. He knew he should use it during the sports festival. His teacher had pulled him aside and discussed his refusal to use it a few lessons ago, and the concept of sportsmanship had come up. Shoto may be stubborn, but he did not want to disrespect his classmates in that way, just his father. The heterochromatic teen shrugs, clearing his mind of his conflicted thoughts as he goes back to training, thrusting over the gym floor and then shakily skating across it. Shinzo panted heavily as he backed away from Bakugo, his forearms smarting from sloppy blocks, and a bruise forming on his face from the final blow of the sparring match. What the fuck don't you understand about guard your face, eyebags? Bakugo said angrily, making the motion for a high block again. You asked me to show you how to fight, you could at least learn the basics. The purple-haired teen grits his teeth, putting his hands up and closing the distance between them again, lashing out with the basic jab and cross pattern the explosive boy had taught him earlier that afternoon. Izuku took a deep breath, steadying himself in the packed hallway. His eyes were locked on the door in front of him, and he knew it would be the first obstacle. The starting gun went, and he leapt into the air, scrambling across shoulders as he used his newfound verticality to pass over the crowd. A chill raced down his spine a moment later, and most of the pack froze in place as Todoroki skated out of the block, his classmates following him moments later. Izuku dove through the door to the sound of gunfire, as the space beyond the gate turned out to be a long uphill hallway with turrets lined up at the end. Every time a student moved, the turrets swiveled to face them and pelted them with beanbags. Todoroki was huddled behind a wall of ice as he planned his next move, and Bakugo had begun to advance, blasting explosions wildly and staggering whenever a beanbag clipped him. Oh yeah, this is my kind of obstacle! Kirishima screamed as he charged by Izuku with his hardening up, beanbags not even facing him. As he approached the end of the obstacle settings later, the turret slid to the sides and let him pass unmolested. The brunette grinned, gauging the distance between the walls of the corridor. It was fairly narrow, wide enough for at most a person and a half, and then jumped up. He kicked off the first wall he connected with and propelled himself across the gap, pushing off the other wall in the same way. Several students taking shelter behind Todoroki's now abandoned ice wall gape at him as he parkours his way overhead, the beanbags falling behind him as the turrets proved not to have much ability to track motion with vertical targets. Seconds later, he lands behind the turrets in 5th place, taking off at a sprint across the open track towards the frontrunners. Katsuki growled as he saw the 2 students in front of him approach the next obstacle, a series of concrete pillars of varying heights rapidly moving around a deep pit. Kirishima faltered at the edge, and Icy Heart, the bastard, just skated over the void, forming an ice bridge under his feet as he went along. Katsuki fired off his explosions as he approached, taking off from the ground in his limited version of flight as he soared across the chasm. A wall of beanbags exploded out of a previously hidden turret, slamming into the boy, and forcing him to land awkwardly on a pillar in the center of the obstacle. Oh, and it appears Bakugo has run afoul of the anti-air turrets! Present Mike's voice rings out across the field. That's right! To keep it all fair, trying to fly across obstacles will catch you some flack!
Limiting students' creativity in this way is the height of irrationality,
Eraser had called out a moment later, echoing Katsuki's own thoughts. Katsuki staggered to his feet, rubbing the sore spots on his arms where the projectiles had viciously smacked into him. Thanking the nerd, who had already passed him now, damn that turret, for all his forced parkour lessons, Katsuki set off across the pillars at a brisk pace, quickly catching up to the leaders of the race once again. Shoto felt like he had this in the bag as he carefully iced his way across the field of the electrified squares. He could easily use his ice to cross the safe green squares, and the electric yellow ones, so he only had to be careful of the red squares. They would violently explode if anything passed above them. A loud noise startled the hot and cold teen, and he turned aside to see Bakugo Katsuki barreling his way across the field with a truly unholy scream. The explosive boy was firing on all cylinders and sprinting across the squares, body twitching and spasming as he rapidly fired explosions to propel it forward regardless. Shoto watched in horror as the red platform erupted around the boy, only for him to go flying out of it towards the goal, gym clothes smoking and scorched as a snarl twisted his face. Behind Bakugo, Midoriya was swiftly crossing the field again, moving with the grace of a dancer as he dove and dashed his way around the traps. Shoto put his head down and redoubled his pace, reaching the edge of the minefield seconds after Bakugo staggered across the finish line. He sighed. His father would be so displeased that he lost at the very end like this. Oh, well, at least he managed to stay ahead of Midoriya. The boy was as scary as he was somewhat attractive. That was chapter 8 and 9 of Red Highlight Darker Shadow. We see the conclusion of the USJ and the preparation for the sports festival and then the first event. And do I smell Tododeku in this fanfic? The last sentence of chapter 9 was like really suggestive, I guess. But anyways, guys, I hope you all enjoyed chapter 8 and 9 of Red Highlight Darker Shadow, and I see you all next time. Bye!